Maybe what might make you think twice. We're talking Holland Village, of course. Super vibrant. Everyone knows it. Much loved spot. That alone tells you something about its appeal.
Absolutely. The location has an inherent draw, no doubt. But what's fascinating here, based on the sources you shared, is that while Holland Village is like a household name, this project, Skye at Holland,
Yeah.
it seems to be doing something unique with its market positioning. It's not just being in a prime spot. There's more to unpack.
Yeah, and the sources really highlight how the Holland Village market is, well, heating up. I mean, we saw that developer Simon bidding like crazy for the Holland Link GLS site. What was it, 1432 PSF?
That's right, 1432 PSF. And that was a full 22% higher than the next bidder. Really aggressive.
Wow. And then you've got One Holland Village Residences hitting resale highs over 3,700 PSF already.
Exactly. So the momentum is undeniable. It creates a really interesting backdrop for Skye at Holland's launch, the all-star team behind the project and location fundamentals.
Okay, so let's start with who's behind this project. The sources mention a joint venture, like 4 big names, Capital Land, UOL, Singland, and King Leong. What does that kind of lineup actually mean for a buyer, beyond just seeing famous logos?
That's a really critical point. It's not just any 4 big names thrown together. It's a strategic mix. You've got Capital Land and UOL. They bring that large-scale reliability, the experience across the market. Then you add Singland and Kang Leong, who are much more known for their luxury, high-end, bespoke kind of developments. Their track record together, think Avenue South Residence, Upper House, Canning Hill Piers, it really points towards quality execution, meticulous planning.
Right.
For a buyer, especially now, that combination significantly lowers the perceived risk. It's a strong signal about the project's potential long-term value.
Right, that makes sense. And then there's the location itself. We're talking District 10, Core Central Region, the CCR, Holland Village. It's just got that reputation, doesn't it? Lifestyle, food, cafes, arts, culture. And the One Holland Village Mall is literally right there, super convenient. And connectivity seems like a huge plus according to the sources. Direct walk to Holland Village MRT, that's the Circle Line, and then just 1 stop to Buena Vista for the East-West Line, 2 stops to downtown, 3 to Thompson East Coast.
It connects you everywhere.
Yeah, and we know properties near MRTs usually get that, 10–15% premium over time?
That's the general rule of thumb, yes. But what really stands out here, and it is quite rare for D10, is having that easy access to 2 key lines, Circle and East-West. If you connect this to the bigger picture, it means super easy commutes to the CBD, One-North, which is huge, with Biopolis, Fusionopolis.
All that tech and research stuff.
Exactly. And Orchard Road, too. It just dramatically boosts the appeal for, well, both homeowners who want convenience and investors looking for renters. The steal, land bid, and surprising price positioning.
Okay, now let's get into something really intriguing from the sources. The land bid. They got the site for Skye at Holland at 1285 PSF per plot ratio. How does that number stack up compared to recent deals? What's the immediate takeaway?
This is where it gets really interesting. That 1285 PSF, it's surprisingly low, especially when you compare it to recent bids, even for sites outside the CCR.
Like Tuan Park or Bayshore.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Chuan Park went for 1376 PSF, Bayshore at 1388 PSF. Even the Holland Link site nearby was 1432 PSF.
So it creates this kind of paradox, doesn't it? How can a prime D10 CCR project have a lower land cost than some RCR or even OCR sites?
Huh. You don't see that often.
Not at all. And it opens up a unique window in the market.
So what does this mean for you, the buyer? How does that lower land cost potentially translate?
Directly into value, hopefully. Based on that 1285 PSF bid, the estimated breakdown price is probably around 2203 PSF. So if you factor in a typical developer profit, say 20–30%, we could be looking at launch prices somewhere in the maybe 2643 to 2863 PSF range.
Okay.
Though some estimates push the average closer to 3000 PSF.
Right.
But compare that to One Holland Village Residences, they launched around 2700 PSF average back in 2019 for their smaller units.
Right. So Skye at Holland could actually offer a pretty good entry price for D10 right now. Potentially, yes. It's what some analysts are calling like CCR luxury at RCR or even OCR prices. It's a compelling narrative. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we are seeing CCR prices kind of narrowing towards RCR levels generally. So Skye at Holland might just hit a sweet spot, letting buyers into D10 at a price point that feels, well, more accessible than you'd expect.
That's interesting. And the sources also mentioned GFA harmonization. What does that actually mean in practical terms for someone buying a unit?
Right, GFA harmonization. Basically, it changes how gross floor area is calculated. What it means for you, the buyer, is more efficient layouts, less space wasted on things like aircon ledges, more actual usable living area. So the units might feel more spacious compared to older projects, even if the square footage number looks similar on paper to, say, One Holland Village. You're getting more bang for your buck in terms of usable space, unit mix, sizes, and a curious pricing strategy.
Got it. Okay, quick project details then. Sources say 666 units, two 40-story blocks, pretty tall, decent land size too, 133,000 SQO feet, and importantly, a 1.1 car park ratio. That's always good news.
Definitely a plus in that area.
The unit mix looks like about 55% are two beds from around 581 to 678 square feet, plus some 2+ study units. The other 44% are three beds and up. Threes start around 915 square feet, then fours from 1,238 square feet, and five beds from 1,765 square feet. Those bigger ones have private lifts. Although it notes the four-bedders with private lifts are actually quite compact compared to some other new luxury places.
That's an interesting observation. But what's really fascinating here, and the sources pick up on this, is the potential pricing strategy. We've seen this counterintuitive trend in other CCR projects recently. Upper House, Martin Modern, The Reef, even One Holland Village, where the bigger units are actually priced at a higher price per square foot than the smaller ones.
Wait, higher P is for bigger units. Usually it's the other way around, isn't it? Lower PS are for bulk.
Exactly. But in these prime projects, it seems developers are doing the opposite. Like at Upper House, an example was a 4-bed suite on floor 34 selling at $3,194 PSF, while a 2-bed on the same floor went for $200,931 PSF. That's a 263 PSF difference.
Wow, why do they do that?
Well, it's likely about maximizing the absolute price, the quantum, for the most premium units, usually the ones with the best unblocked views. So while the bigger units bring in huge total sums, this strategy means the smaller units might actually offer, potentially, a better ROI or maybe feel like a safer entry point because of that PSF gap.
Okay, so applying that to Skye at Holland.
Yeah.
The bigger 4 and 5 beds will probably have those amazing GCB and landed views, justifying the higher PS.
Very likely, yes, especially on the higher floors.
But this could make the 2-bedroom units, maybe facing Holland Village itself, a kind of sweet spot for buyers. More flexible entry price, maybe easier to resell later, like you said happened at Upper House.
That's a strong possibility. Those smaller units might move very quickly on launch day, just like we saw elsewhere. It caters to a different, but still very keen segment of buyers.
And there's the floor difference too, right?
Right.
A 40-story building.
Mm-hmm.
The price jump per floor must be significant.
Oh, absolutely. The data points to maybe a 0.5% to 0.6% increment per floor. For a typical unit, that could easily mean a $250,000 to $300,000 price difference between a low floor and a high floor.
Phew.
Yeah, so those mid-floor units might represent a really interesting balance of view and value for some people. Exceptional rentability and long-term capital appreciation.
Okay, let's shift gears to investment potential. Rentability. The sources all seem to agree Holland Village is a magnet for tenants.
Undeniably. It's always had that strong appeal for expats, professionals, people who really value the lifestyle, the convenience.
And it's not just Holland Village itself, is it? It's close to the whole greater One-North area, Biopolis, Fusionopolis, Mediapolis.
A Launchpad, NUS, NUH.
Right, a massive pool of potential tenants right there. Plus, less than 10 minutes drive to Orchard or the CBD, the sources say.
Which makes it incredibly attractive for people working in those key hubs. It ticks a lot of boxes for renters.
The data seems to back this up strongly, too.
Oh, definitely. Look at One Holland Village residences. It's just completed last year, right? And already out of just 296 units, there have been over 180 rental transactions recorded. That's huge uptake.
More than half the project rented out already. What kind of rents are they getting?
The median rent is hovering around 7 to 8 PS across the board, which is very healthy. So forecasting for Skye at Holland, you could potentially see 2 beds renting for, say, $4,600 to $5,900, 3 beds maybe around $8,600, 4 beds perhaps $9,900. These suggest pretty strong rental yields for investors, makes it quite compelling.
And thinking longer term, capital appreciation. The sources mentioned this being the last plot so close to the MRT and mall in Holland V.
That's a significant point. There won't be another large-scale project right in that immediate sweet spot. Scarcity value. And the scale itself, 666 units, that's actually an advantage.
How so? Does size matter for appreciation?
It seems to, yes. If we connect this to the broader District 10 market over the last decade, the data shows that larger projects, those over 500 units, have generally outperformed smaller ones. We're talking growth of about 47.8% for the bigger project.
Wow, nearly 50% growth.
Yeah, it suggests more resale transactions, better price discovery, more liquidity, which helps drive prices up over time.
And for an exit strategy, who's buying these later?
Well, you've got a very clear pool of HDB upgraders from nearby areas like Dawson, Queenstown, Red Hill. Lots of million-dollar flats there now. These are people who likely already know and love the Holland Village vibe, so there's a built-in future demand base, addressing potential drawbacks with expert insight.
Okay, but it can't all be perfect, right? Let's talk about potential downsides or concerns raised in the sources. One thing mentioned is schools. No primary schools within 1 kilometer, apparently. Henry Park might be just outside.
That's a valid point to raise, yes. For families prioritizing that 1 kilometer radius for primary school enrollment, this might not be the top choice. But this raises an important question about the target audience. This project seems less geared towards those specific school-focused families. It aligns much more naturally with buyers prioritizing lifestyle convenience, maybe empty nesters, or investors focusing on rental demand from professionals, expats. For that segment, the 1 kilometer school thing is less critical. So, while it's a factor, it caters strongly to a different, very robust market segment.
Okay, fair enough. What about the pricing on higher floors? We mentioned the floor increment, pushing top floors maybe to 3,300, 3,500 PSF. That sounds quite high.
It does sound high in isolation, yes. But again, context is key. Many of those high-floor units, especially in the north and west facings, will likely have completely unblocked views over landed housing GCB areas.
Views that won't get built out later.
Exactly. That offers long-term certainty, which adds a premium. It makes those units more resilient in value compared to projects where your view might disappear later. Plus, we just saw that subsale at One Holland Village hit 300,781 PSF. That provides a pretty strong recent benchmark, suggesting those higher prices aren't necessarily out of line for premium units in this specific location.
Right, that OHV resale is a key marker.
Okay.
One last point, nearby freehold options. Some sources might point out smaller freehold projects within walking distance. Isn't freehold always better?
The classic freehold versus leasehold debate. It's an important consideration. But I'd circle back to the data we discussed. In District 10, over the past 10 years, those larger leasehold projects, over 500 units like Skye, have actually shown stronger price appreciation than smaller projects, regardless of tenure sometimes.
But the scale and transaction volume might trump the tenure for investment growth.
It often can, yes. More activity, more liquidity generally leads to stronger price performance. So a large leasehold like Skye could arguably be a stronger long-term investment play purely based on that historical data. And just a quick note on construction, the nearby Holland Vista BTO site is set to complete around the same time as Skye at Holland, which should help mitigate any really long-term construction noise concerns in the immediate vicinity. Outro.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Based on this deep dive into the sources you've shared, Skye and Holland really seems to offer a unique mix. Prime D10 address. That's surprisingly low land cost advantage, very strong developer backing.
Okay.
Plus, a potentially clever pricing strategy, especially for certain units, and undeniable rentability in a location that's just buzzing.
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Skye at Holland presents itself as this quite rare opportunity, a chance to own a CCR property that, because of its land costs and where prices might launch, could almost feel like entering at an RCR or even OCR price point, especially for those strategically priced smaller units.
So what does this all mean for you listening in? It really invites you to think about how these specific market dynamics, especially that developer pricing strategy for different unit sizes, how that might fit into your own plans, whether you're buying a home or investing in this really vibrant district.
And perhaps it leaves you with this thought. In a market where luxury often just means higher PSF across the board, no matter the unit, this raises an important question. How much value do you personally place on a project that seems to be strategically pricing its units, catering to both the absolute top end and creating these potentially more accessible sweet spots for savvy buyers?
A really interesting question to ponder for a very interesting project. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Skye at Holland.